session is one I've been looking forward to for a while for a variety of reasons. I think first and foremost, I've had the opportunity to witness what Black Veatch has been doing with the Growth Accelerator, with their innovation programming, since really kind of that's kind of around when you guys started a lot of this stuff, and it's been fun to watch. And I've said since the beginning, in terms of what large companies have been doing across the Kansas City region, far and away, I think they've set the standard in terms of how to manage innovation and some of the work they've been doing. So it's great to have the team here. The second reason is, as we started talking about what that innovation has looked like and the forms that it has taken over the years, to find that intersection with the social good and find that intersection with community impact is it's fantastic. And so I'm gonna let you all introduce yourself. I could not do justice. I know all of you, but I could not do justice to the introduction. So I'm gonna let you guys go down the row and in true panel fashion, introduce yourselves, tell us a little bit about you and so on. And Anita, I'm gonna start with you.
Great. Good evening. I am Anita Davis, and my day job is Chief Mission Officer with Goodwill Industry. We are actually in our headquarters of the Goodwill office here. This is our mission support center. Most people don't know us for our mission, which is a great reason that we're here. I have worked in community, economic, and workforce development for about 20 years. Glad to be here.
All right. Hey, everyone. I'm Andrew Foster. I'm part of Black Veatch's Rapid Modular Health and Digital Equity team. So I just recently joined the team. I spent the last 10 years as the emergency manager for the University of Kansas and have a background in emergency management and military and a couple other fun things there. But glad to be part of the Black Veatch team and doing some really exciting work.
Hi, good evening. Halim George here, and thanks Anita and Kevin for hosting us. It's a great facility here. I've been with Black Veatch for about 8 years. I'm part of our Solutions and Innovations group, so I get to work with Dave and with Andrew and team. And our responsibilities include scaling priority areas for the company and developing new solutions. Part of that includes our Growth Accelerator that Kevin mentioned, which is a lot of internal programming to support entrepreneurship within the company, and then reaching out outside of our organization to build an entrepreneurial network with early stage companies and emerging technologies that are active in critical human infrastructure.
Yeah, and hi, I'm Dave Johnson. I'm also part of the Innovation and Growth Group at Black Veatch. Thank you also for hosting us today, Kevin. Also excited to be here to share kind of a little bit about our story and what we're doing to positively impact communities, and excited to tell you a little bit about how we're partnering with groups like Anita's team in the Goodwill Industries. So thanks all, and look forward to it.
Halim, I want to start with you since you were kind of around, from the beginning of this whole thing. Talk to me a little bit, or talk to all of us, I guess, a little bit about corporate innovation, right? There's a little bit, like, in my experience has always been a bit of a paradox. So talk a little bit about how Black Veatch sees innovate, views the word innovation, views this topic of innovation, and how the Growth Accelerator kind of came out of that.
Yeah, and I've talked with you about it a lot, so happy to talk to others about it.
Thanks, Halim.
So a number of angles we could take this, maybe starting with, what is innovation? We've got a pretty simple definition that we use at Black Veatch. It's the implementation of new ideas that create value. And so when you break that down, those words matter. The implementation part is, you got to get something done. It's more than just generating ideas. Generating ideas is great, but that's really creativity, right? Actually putting them into action, like we heard with the first session tonight, which was absolutely amazing. Like, that's implementation. And the new idea piece is, it's got to be something different. We can't be doing the same thing, or just merely improving upon what's already been done. So we're looking for something new. And then it's got to be meaningful in the sense that it's got to create value. Otherwise, why are we even bothering to do it? So that's the definition that we have. And then within a large organization, I really believe, and having been a part of a number of large organizations, you really have to have mechanisms for innovation. And that's one of the reasons why we have the Growth Accelerator team at Black Veatch, is to provide a mechanism for innovation inside of a large organization. For those that are not as familiar with Black Veatch, we're headquartered here in the Kansas City area. We're a global company, about 8,500 employees. We operate in the field of critical human infrastructure. So things like power, water, telecommunications. We're a project-based business, and our professionals, especially right now, are incredibly busy. There's tremendous demand for power, water, telecommunications infrastructure here in the US and around the globe. And so you've got to create outlets and mechanisms away from that project delivery engine for professionals to pursue innovation, to have a safe space to test and learn and fail forward. And it was really championed from the top by our CEO, Steve Edwards, about 6 years ago. And he chartered a group that said, hey, so long as you don't violate mission, vision, values of the company, we're going to give you some space to roam and explore new markets, explore new technologies, all with the goal of driving growth for the company. And additional benefits that we've enjoyed from it. It's been a wonderful way to engage with professionals inside of our company, those that have a bias for action, a bias towards entrepreneurship. And that was really our focus in the early days. And more recently, I think we've done a nice job of trying to extend the network beyond the professionals that are inside of Black & Veatch.
So, yeah, I can attest to all of the things that you said, being on the outside and being a part of the ecosystem, watching you guys focused internally on building innovation culture, getting your the ideation and side, but then turning that around and activating that into an external ecosystem has been impressive to watch. Talk to me. So, Dave, I guess for you, the markets that you guys face, like some of the markets that you're focused on around this innovation, around the growth accelerator. Talk to me about, Halim touched on kind of the macro, power, energy, some of those types of things. Specific to innovation, what are some of the markets that you guys are focused on in the growth accelerator?
Yeah, we have a pretty broad swath of markets that we're focused on. So, a couple of things we try to do is we try to let kind of the innovation lead us in the growth accelerator. So, whereas some of the parts of the business are fairly focused on traditional areas, we're always looking for what is that new frontier? Where can we really make an impact? Now, if we innovate and we can bring some of that innovation back to our core businesses, like Eileen described, that's a huge win for our company. But at the end of the day, if we want to grow, we have to really seek out new frontiers. And what we want to talk about a little bit here today is how do we connect with innovators and go after some really new markets? So markets like healthcare, as an example, is a totally new market for us. But as you all know, it's so important to communities and to those that are really underserved. And so we're trying to bring innovation that we can offer and capabilities that we have to a new market like healthcare, not traditional for us at all, but one that we think we can impact.
So a couple of things to unpack there, and then I'm going to continue down the road this way. I want to go back to Halim. So when we talk about that external, these markets that you guys are focused on from an innovation perspective, these opportunities that you've seen where you can have an impact at Black & Veatch, how does that how do people outside the company interact with something like the Growth Accelerator? Where are those intersection points for, as we're building an ecosystem here at Keystone, how do we think about you as a partner, and where do we plug in? If there's ideas outside that we want to share with you, if there's things that you're looking for feedback from the community, like where are those natural or, programmatic places where we can find those intersections?
Yeah, we there's a couple of angles. I mean, one, part of the reason we're here is to build those connections between, folks that are leading innovation within Black & Veatch and the broader community. We made a conscious effort a couple of years ago to start some external programming. I'm going to have like a little bit of a shameless plug here, I guess, around IDEX programming. As Kevin mentioned, for the first couple of years in our accelerator programming, we kind of focused inward and looked at opportunities to engage with our professionals to identify those folks that had new novel ideas that could be extensions of the services that we provide to our clients. And we said, hey, this is wonderful. We have tremendous talent under our roof, but there's this whole world outside the company that we're probably not taking as much of advantage of as we could. And so we put forward a program called IgniteX, where we typically run it on an annual basis, and we'll have a thematic focus. And so most recently, it's been focused around clean technologies to support, a carbon-free environment. And that program is a means for emerging technologies to get the attention of a large organization like Black & Veatch. And what we have found through that program is the relationships that we have with those early stage companies take a couple of forms. So in some instances, the companies have a technology that's really useful for the projects that we're executing today. And so the company actually becomes a supplier of technology or services to Black & Veatch. In other instances, the company is complementary to work that we do, and we can actually be a channel partner. And between the two entities, we have something that's new and novel and creates a more compelling value proposition for clients that we already serve. And then the third instance is, and we see this a lot in like the biotech space, companies are developing a technology that would really benefit from engineering services and expertise that we have, and the company actually becomes a customer of Black & Veatch's, and we can scale and grow together. So programs like that are a nice structured way for us to put out a call and have companies respond. And when you respond, we're sure to answer and connect you with the right people, because we fully recognize it can be hard for small companies to get the attention of a large organization.
So I Liam, I know in my own experience with the Sprint Accelerator, a CEO can mandate innovation. You can put a program in place that intersects with an external marketplace, like an accelerator, and like what you guys have done with the clean tech world that you were just describing. But at the end of the day, after a few years, CFO comes calling. It's calling and wants to know, what are the proof points? What are the outcomes that you can show us that have, led to that innovation that you just eloquently described should happen? But what are some of the proof points that you can share with us, or maybe some of those relationships, some of those companies that have been like those success points for you guys over the years? Yeah, sure. I mean, and this, we could have a whole session on this. So I'm gonna. Bet. Did you guys hear that? We're gonna do another session. So I'll just share. I actually think some anecdotes help illustrate the points, and so I'll give you a few specific examples. One, we do at times make small investments in these early stage companies. And so we have built a small portfolio of investments, and we have enjoyed an exit along the way. So that's certainly one proof point that a CFO likes to see. Another great example is parts of our portfolio that are rapidly growing. So I'll point to our renewable energy business as an example, and specifically utility scale solar, which for those that aren't familiar with utility scale solar projects, you're talking hundreds of acres and you're deploying thousands upon thousands of solar panels. So it's basically setting up a manufacturing facility in a remote environment. And so searching for ways to deliver that service more efficiently, we have established a partnership with companies that have autonomous construction equipment. And so we are utilizing that autonomous construction equipment at those job sites to improve the way that we build those sites and to make them safer, and to upskill our own professionals on how they can operate that sort of technology, technically sophisticated equipment. So I can go on and on with other examples, but those are a couple that come to mind that we like to see. Since you've offered to come back and share more, we will hold you to that. Dave, though, so how does an engineering company like Black & Veatch play into the healthcare space?
Yeah, that's a great question. So this time when we got involved in healthcare, it was around a need, right? So when the pandemic hit, Steve Edwards, who we were just talking about, our CEO at the time, really came to our team and he said, hey, is there any way we could really impact this pandemic? We're not in the healthcare business. We don't have doctors and nurses on our team, but how can we make a difference? And one of our charters at Black & Veatch is making a world of difference. So it really kind of lined up for us. And we said, well, we're good at producing infrastructure, and we're good at embedding some of these new technologies like Eileen was describing inside of that infrastructure. So the idea there was we created a business called RAMS, which stood for Rapid Modular Health System. How could we create modular units, sometimes modular mobile units, to go out into communities, to go near hospitals, to go into rural areas and help test for COVID and help screen for COVID. And within 90 days, we developed a business. We'd partnered initially with St. Luke's, who many of you may know here in the Kansas City area. And St. Luke's also had a problem. They said, we're getting overrun inside of our hospital with patients that need care for COVID, and we just don't have room. And frankly, we don't really want them all inside of the hospital. So we went down to St. Luke's and we started by interviewing some of the nurses at St. Luke's. And we said, what's your need though, besides providing infrastructure? We want to know it's a place where you feel secure and you can do your job well. So they gave us a nice laundry list of things they wanted inside of these units, like we want them climate controlled. We don't want to be in a tent. We want our samples to be safe. We want to have air purification. We want to have power, things like that. So anyway, net, cut to the chase, we built our first solution for St. Luke's, the facility down on the plaza, and they were able to do testing outside instead of inside of the hospital. And that kind of launched our business, and we started doing that for other healthcare firms and other communities and civic organizations around the country.
And so I'm a Jayhawk. Sorry for those of you who, there was a K-State shout out earlier. Thank you for that. But I also heard the KU reference at the end of that story, so I didn't miss that. The relationship with KU during the pandemic. And so I think some of the capabilities that you're talking about, RAMs, I think ended up on university campuses, correct?
Yeah, that's right, Kevin. We had the opportunity. We were talking to the University of Kansas, of which I'm an alumni, and they also said we have a similar problem. We have to suddenly test all of these students coming back to the university for the next semester, and we don't know how to do it, and we don't want to do it again inside of our facilities, right? And we need help. And so we met with a team of people there, and part of that team was this gentleman right near here named Andrew Foster, who led their safety team at KU. And we said, how can we build infrastructure? Again, what Black & Veatch does well. We do infrastructure really, really well. How can we build a testing city, if you will, at the University of Kansas to test over 40,000 students and faculty very, very quickly? And that's what we started building, and worked with Andrew and his team on that. And Andrew, I might pass it to you to tell the real story of what happened next.
So that's the other side of the story. So I get a call one day from the chancellor. The pandemic had started, and the chancellor says, hey, we got these guys from Black & Veatch. They say they've got a solution for you. Give them a shot. Right. And I say, yeah, I'm underwater at this point. Right. The pandemic started. I was the emergency manager, so I was responsible for facilitating all the testing and eventually all the vaccinations, as well as all of the safety protocols that went on for the entire university system, except for the hospital. So it was a bit of a lift. Right. And I had a shop of 2 people at the time. So there wasn't a whole lot of assistance coming into this. So I get the call from the chancellor. He says, give him a shot. And so we get on the phone with the Rams team and say, what is it that you do? Because I don't really know Black & Veatch at all at this point. I just know the name and that they're really big in Kansas City and they do some cool stuff. But I always pictured like they're building power lines or power plants or water treatment facilities. And so we get in the conversation and they tell us more about this solution. And it turns out that it's actually going to be really effective. We bring the solution out, rapidly drop it into a parking lot. We set up lanes, and we're able to test about 18,000 people over the course of 10 days. So this is super early in the pandemic. When we did that initial testing, it was the largest testing site in the nation at the time. So we were the first school to do entrance testing, and it was really quite amazing. And I didn't know going into that, that those type of resources were out there. As an emergency manager, somebody who worked in public service my entire life, I never had resources. It was always me asking for more and more and more. And it wasn't until the pandemic when federal monies became available and everyone realized that we actually have to respond to this disaster, that people started showing up and saying, here, you can have anything you need, just keep the school open. We got to keep teaching. And that's, you see it sometimes after a tornado where someone will come in and say, whatever you need to respond to that tornado, we'll provide it for you. But I had never experienced that at the university system. We avoided a lot of it. So Rams came in, we were able to do the testing. We kept that on site. It assisted us with vaccination later on. And it really opened our eyes to a lot of the other issues that we needed to provide long-term solutions for, that Rams and eventually what we'll talk about, which is in the digital equity space, became solutions that could solve for those issues.
Who was it that said never let a good crisis go to waste?
Never.
So let's talk a little bit about that. So how does Rams transition in the learnings and the technology from what you've done with Rams in a crisis situation, in the pandemic? How does that transition into a post-pandemic world?
Yeah, I'll start, and then Andrew, you can share a little bit. I think what we learned along the way with RAMS was that there was a essential problem that we had to meet, which was to solve the pandemic, we had to bring testing and vaccinations to the people, to neighborhoods, to the underserved, to rural areas throughout Kansas and other places in the country. And that's what really worked to solve it. Those were the untested, those were the unvaccinated. But what we saw along the way as well was that, hey, there was a real need for basic health services to be brought to neighborhoods and the underserved in the same manner. And by the way, there was real digital inequity around the country that could also be solved with partners through infrastructure, modular, mobile infrastructure. Maybe it looks a little bit different, but bringing digital solutions and training out to communities. And so I think the lesson we learned through the pandemic was we had to expand our thinking and try to bring health services and digital equity to the underserved. And in doing that, that hosted a bunch of opportunities for new innovation, new solutions. And that's kind of the business we have today, which is really around supporting health inequity and digital inequity in many instances. And Andrew, you might share a little bit about that as well.
When we made the announcement that we were going to close, that was like April of 20. We told everybody that lived in campus housing that they had to go home, and we told all faculty and staff to work remote, which if you guys remember that time, that was crazy because what was working remote, we didn't have Zoom at the time. That was like brand new. Everyone was trying to use Skype, which was a lot of fun. So we sent everybody home, and we immediately realized that about a third of our faculty, staff, and students weren't able to do what they had been sent home to do that they would have done on site. So they didn't have access to the internet at home. A lot of them didn't know what to do with healthcare. They didn't have the health literacy that was required to participate in the healthcare process. So if you don't have internet, you don't even have computers at home. We'd be surprised how many faculty members didn't actually have a computer that they could take home with them. They relied on their desktop machine that was on campus. And they didn't have internet at home beyond their cell phone. And we'd be surprised how many of those people didn't have a smartphone. They still had a flip phone. So whoever was with Sprint, T-Mobile, you guys need to step up the game on that. No.
Only so much we can do.
So, but we found out if that inequity exists, right? Like when we go into the pandemic and we have that type of inequity on a college campus, a place that you would consider to be a fairly affluent society or affluent group of people that are going there, then where else does this inequity exist? And as we start doing data analysis, I'm able to take a look at those individuals that identified of not having computers and identified as not having health literacy. And when I put them on a map, I find that there's commonality amongst the communities that those individuals are coming from. And those are communities that have historically historically been underserved and have historical inequities in those communities. And so I look back at it from my perspective now to say, we have the opportunity with this solution to provide mobile and modular medical capabilities, while at the same time building the solution to do digital equity, because equity is across the board. If you don't have healthcare, if you don't have access to the internet, if you don't have access to all those things, then you're not going to be able to succeed in the same method as everybody else. I'll pause there. I just keep rambling if you let me.
Keep going, but I guess there's something I want to ask about organizationally. So I want to talk again about the corporate side of this thing. Because if you guys haven't been paying attention, 6 years ago, you started the Growth Accelerator, and it was focused on macro business needs, and then there was a community crisis, and you pivoted to focus on a community crisis, and that has led to new opportunities that are impacting the community inside the company. Is this the same team? Is there a health equity team and a digital equity team? Is this, how organizationally have you adapted to was, from my perspective, a very entrepreneurial journey to get to these solutions? So talk to me a little bit about how you're structured to support this now. And is it still in an innovation team, or is it now kind of become a core element of the business, and what's that transition look like?
Yeah, and at the risk of speaking a little bit of corporate, what we have found works well for us is we have a core team of folks that have really honed their skills in the ability to move very swiftly when opportunities present themselves. So I think our Growth Accelerator team and those core team members have really demonstrated the ability to move at speed and then we can rely on the broader organization to achieve scale. So it's kind of a hybrid model that we have in place, whereby we have a couple of core team members. I'm joined by a few of them right now, and then we'll reach into the broader organization for the technical capabilities and the scale that we need across the globe. So when it came to, in this example, where the team was pivoting from a health equity solution to a digital equity solution, well, we could rely on folks in our connectivity business, our telecom business, to help us with those connectivity solutions. And so, it's really a combination of that core group moving quickly and then relying on the scale that exists in the broader company.
And I would just add one thing to that, and also rely on partners. So this dovetails with our innovation group quite well, because one of the IgniteX programs we did the year before, the Clean Tech, was focused on COVID solutions. And over a dozen of those partners we now work with in embedding that technology into the solutions we offer today. So it's both internal and I would say external as well.
So for those of you keeping score at home on the Medici effect conversation we've been having here for weeks, these are these intersections that are actually happening inside of a company between like intersecting groups and taking ideas from one to the other and transitioning them on. So it's fascinating kind of as a case study as you think about that. About the solution itself. Let's talk about what you guys are doing in the digital equity space. And so what you've done with RAMS, how you identified the healthcare deficits and gaps. Those are associated to connectivity gaps in those same communities. So talk a little bit about the solution itself.
Yeah, so in the foundational level, the solution is very similar to what we're offering in the health space. It's a menu of mobile and modular solutions that can be configured to meet any need, whether that's a large event need or a stable community need or a government need. Like health solutions, it's often funded through federal dollars that flow down to the local level, like with the Recession Reduction Act, has billions of dollars dedicated to support digital solutions. But then also like health solutions, we don't do the digital training ourselves. So that's where we partner with groups like the Goodwill organization, where we're building solutions that might be a digital equity bus that's a mobile training unit, looks like a classroom on wheels with big screen TVs and desks and broadband connected to it and avatars, if you will, and all kinds of cool tech. But at the end of the day, it's to bring training out to communities, software, computers, and other partners on that end as well. And so, but at the end of the day, it's still infrastructure. We also create clinics on the healthcare side. We can create, spaces and infrastructure that stays in place as well for digital equity training. And we can even create solutions that support bringing in funding for digital equity as well. And so at the end of the day, it's the same stuff Black & Veatch has already done, but it's just a new purpose at the end of the day.
So we used to put, mobile facilities for special events, Super Bowls, football games, things like that. Is what you're talking about, since you're an infrastructure company, is what you're talking about a little bit more permanent in terms of its ability to impact the connectivity in, an historically under-resourced community neighborhood or from a rural perspective. So are we talking about like infrastructure, or is this transition infrastructure, mobile infrastructure?
Yeah, it's kind of all of the above. So infrastructure can be mobile. It can be modular, meaning we can Lego block it, we can add on to it. One of our clients actually on the health side, they said, we want to create what looks like a Sonic, but for health services. So you drive in, you park your car, we walk out, and we give you 5 of the 6 shots you might really need, including a COVID test.
Really interesting example to use for the healthcare space.
Right.
It's like we want to create a Sonic for healthcare.
That's right. Yeah, it's a little scary, isn't it? But I think what the pandemic proved is that people don't want to always go into the hospital or into large facilities to get either training or health services. And so we can create a menu of different types of structures to support that. And we service those structures around the country, and that's kind of the core of the business. But at the end of the day, we do need partners to make it real.
All right, so near and dear to my heart, and one of the first people that ever graced this stage from a sessions perspective is sitting next to me. Anita, talk to me a little. So everybody might not be familiar with Goodwill, and the mission and what your role is. So talk a little bit about that mission and how that intersects with the conversation we're having.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks again for being here as well. These great conversations.
Said I'd have you back, and so here we are.
Here I am, and good food and good wine here as well. So that's always good. So why are we here as Goodwill with Black Veatch? Give you a little bit of a background. So Goodwill is probably the originating social enterprise model. I think everyone understands our donated goods stores. People go there, they drop off their gently used items or new items, and we resell those. And certainly that's a huge benefit to the community, but it is really our how and not our why. Our why is our mission. Our mission is to empower people through work. And so it's about workforce development. It's about education. It's about economic mobility. And it's about lifting up people in the community. And that's really what we do. 88 cents on every dollar that we raise through our stores goes towards this broader mission of workforce development. So as an organization, we started thinking about our place in innovation many years ago. We looked at it twofold. One was about how do we create efficiencies within our own textile industry, within our own work, to improve how we raise revenue, how we operate our stores. And so whether that is through automation, which we know is happening within retail spaces, or is that through other means? And so we had embarked upon this project of looking at computer machine learning and how that might be able to automate the process of our donated goods processing. And so we had started down this path of innovation, which is one of the reasons we were very open to this partnership with Black Veatch as well. We had recognized that there was this huge digital divide, and that there were equity gaps and there were obstacles to people being a part of this innovative economy and really seeing themselves in this new technology. So not only were we looking at this from an organizational perspective and adopting these technologies, we were also in the business of how do we build a workforce? Much like Craig and Naeem's conversation, it was really about creating these opportunities, opening up doors and pathways and preparing people for innovative economies. And so when we had the opportunity to understand about Black Veatch as a nonprofit organization, we really wanted to take advantage of this type of a partnership that we can look at a number of ways. And one of those innovative partnerships that we're exploring are attended donation centers. Of course, our model is built on donors giving our goods. That really starts our ability to generate that revenue to execute our mission. And so how do we reach more people across the community? One of the ideas is this idea of a modular donation center where people can come. It is more temporary. It's not a permanent infrastructure, but in some communities, they have just, a big old van, and our donation attendants would be in there hot and sweaty. And so why don't we do something more innovative to collect our donations, to reach our donors, also go into urban areas. So that's one aspect of this partnership. The other aspect is around digital equity and inclusion. It's a key pillar of our work. As I mentioned, we recognize that the people that we serve every day, which 60% of them are unemployed, they suffer from struggle with a number of different barriers, whether those are individual differences and different abilities that they may have, or whether that's just systemic barriers that they have to fight through in order to get employment. We recognize that digital inclusion, digital skills was a key component of ensuring that people were economically mobile. And so we actually were able to benefit from a generous donation from the Kansas Department of Commerce. We actually have this mobile unit. It's a little old, it's a little dated. We don't have the benefit of on-site maintenance here that Black Veatch provides, but we have a similar model. And so again, we started these conversations about how do we continue to expand the use of these to go out into the communities where there are thousands of people across the community that cannot afford laptops and PCs, that cannot afford high-speed broadband, and thus were left out of education opportunities for their children, work opportunities, access to health. And so at the end of the day, holistically, this partnership is about increasing access, whether that's access to goods, access to donating, access to training, education, digital skills. And so that's really where this partnership is. We not only go out into the communities with this mobile unit, but we go out there and we train people, and we do all of this at no cost. There is no cost for our services because we do have this social enterprise. So really that's our position, is continuing to be innovative, nimble, as a nonprofit organization. How do we continue to grow and advance our mission?
So one of the things, when you were here last time, Anita, we talked about this gap in workforce today. And that there are, we always talk about there's all these jobs that need to be filled, but then we always talk about there's all these people that need jobs. And then there's all these programs that train them, and then you go look and there's a lot of empty seats, right? And like where is that delta between people who need jobs that need filled, and there are programs there to help that transition or help that career pathing, but they're not being utilized. And one of the things that we talked about was it's not just affordability. Oftentimes there are logistical challenges in some of those things, transportation and other aspects. And so one of the things you impressed upon me, if you guys don't know why we're in this building, it's the partnership with Goodwill that we had created from the very beginning. They have their classroom in the back of this building, but it's not just about this classroom. You have to take that opportunity to the people. And this partnership helps you expand that, I think is one of the things I heard you say. What kind of impact have you seen from being able to be out in the community versus what you do here in the classroom?
Well, I can say, and I think that, David, you sort of referenced this as well, that post-pandemic, there were a lot of shifts in many areas, whether that's just traditional employment, whether that's access to health or how people choose to access health. It happened as well with education and workforce. Not everybody wants to go in to your bricks and mortar facility and receive services when they have so many other ways to access services. When people also don't have the means, they don't have transportation, maybe people didn't have childcare. So it really, definitely is about access. And so we see that we had to shift our model, not only to be more flexible and adaptable to people's schedules, to people's real lives, to people's needs outside of receiving an education. We had to bring this to them because for many people, it was an issue of transportation. And so we have seen that impact increase. We have seen the numbers of people be able to access it. We have seen an increase in awareness of our programs and services. So as opposed to just waiting for people to come in here, which is our mission support headquarters, we're now able to go out to a much further group of people. South Kansas City, for instance, is very isolated from a lot of workforce, education services, and other resources. So we're able to access these areas that we weren't able to before. So it again really comes down to meeting people where they are.
How many people do you guys touch from a workforce development perspective on an annual basis in just Goodwill MOKAN?
Last year, we served just under 5,000 people. And so when Kevin says just Goodwill MOKAN, I think a lot of people think Goodwill's like one big giant Goodwill across the world, but there are 155 unique Goodwills. We are Goodwill of Western Missouri, Eastern Kansas. We have 82 counties across these two states. So we served just in mission about 5,000 people. So that is everything from helping someone find a home, helping someone that's formerly incarcerated. We have a contract with the Department of Corrections. We work with SWAG Inc. and we work with many other community partners and organizations, both private, public, and nonprofit, where we wouldn't be able to do this without that. So 5,000, that includes as well, we employ just under 600 people a year.
So for Andrew or for Hailem or for Dave, either any of you guys, one of the programs we run here is a social venture studio. We talk about social entrepreneurship. We heard Anita talk about Goodwill is the oldest social enterprise. I know in the corporate world, it's a shareholder world, right? It's a quarterly earnings kind of environment, and there's a lot of reasons why that exists. But this idea of starting to see, doing business and doing good starting to see it move up the Dow Jones list to companies the size of a Black & Veatch. Talk to me a little bit why this matters to Black & Veatch. Why does it matter to have this type of community engagement, to have this type of, the business heading this way? And is this something you see that was maybe accelerated, no pun intended, or the impact was identified through the pandemic? Like, wait a minute, we could actually have a different impact than what we've had in our macro business. And now that that's happened, it's like, oh, this was good. We're gonna do more.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of reactions to that. One, yes, the global pandemic was certainly a trigger for us to think differently. And there was a period in time in there where we asked the question, well, why not us? Like, what more could we do? And if not us, who else? And so that was a bit of a trigger. And then, with respect to the partnership with Goodwill, one of the things that I really like is the missions of our organizations. Although we're structured differently, the missions align really, really well. So building a world of difference through sustainable infrastructure. Well, workforce development, which is a result of having access to digital solutions, having access to development of new skills, that's critical infrastructure. And one of the things that we have seen in our own business is the pace of change is only accelerating. And so, for us to continue to be successful in what we do, we're going to have to continue to partner with organizations like Goodwill to develop that workforce of the future. So, I'll ask Dave and Andrew to add, but definitely the pandemic was a trigger. And it's just really cool when you see, two organizations that haven't necessarily worked closely together come together, and the missions align really well and the cultures align really well, and you start to uncover more and more opportunities to grow.
Yeah, and I think the other part of it, at least for me, when we say why us, I think it's important to us to help others. I think that's something that we saw during the pandemic, was that there were a lot of people in need, and it felt like not everybody was getting the love and the care that they really deserved because it was such a hard time for everyone. And then when you look across the board at some organizations like Goodwill, that's an organization that never stopped during the pandemic. You kept up giving services to folks and helping people out. And we look and we say, now we have the opportunity to pick up the torch a little bit and to assist in that. And we're an employee-owned company. This is something that our employees, our organization, our professionals, try to get the terminology right. I'm new enough, I still don't get it all. But our professionals have said, caring for others, serving others, doing the right thing, helping everybody, the whole community, is really important to us. And that seems to be, in my short time with the company, it's something that is evident as you walk through the door and as you talk to people every day, is that people really do care and they really want to do something good. And so this is an opportunity for us to do that. And if we miss that opportunity, then the public will look at us different, but we have to look at ourselves differently as well and say, we didn't do the right thing when we had the opportunity at a critical moment in history.
I just want to make sure everybody heard that. I just want to put a pin in that for a second, that you had one of the largest employers in Kansas City say, not their foundation, not their community relations team, the business, the innovation team, say, we didn't feel like everybody in the community was getting all the love and care they needed, and we felt like we had answers. Like that's a foundation. That's like a sea change moment that the pandemic, I think, I've seen from other companies. But kudos to you guys for actually doing that and for recognizing that. So where does this go next? Like, what approach you guys are taking? Where do you see this going for you now? And what should we be looking for?
Yeah, we're not going to stop here. We're going to really capitalize on this opportunity. The digital divide is larger than ever. 50 million people don't have basic broadband. How do you get a job? How do you apply for a job if you don't have access to the internet? Just those are table stakes, right? Basic training on how to write a resume, is really needed, along with other types of training. So we're developing new solutions every day. We're letting our clients and partners like Goodwill teach us, what they really want, and developing our R&D along the way to meet those needs. And I think the future looks really bright. Healthcare is moving towards decentralization in a big, big way. We just had a large group of dentists that are nationwide come to us, and they want to take dentistry out to people as well using mobile modular units. The digital divide, like I said, we can really expand there. What kinds of new software, what kinds of new tech, what kinds of new training can we partner to bring out to communities, and what kinds of cool infrastructure can we use to really do that? And so we see a long horizon with this business, and at the end of the day, we feel really good about the impact we're making, and I think it's being recognized by the federal government and local government as well. They're putting a lot of emphasis on this need. They're putting billions and billions of dollars into serving it. And if we don't take advantage of that effort, then we're really missing the mark. And one of the things we did know, because we researched it, was during COVID, so many of those dollars went unused. And so many people didn't benefit from that capital that we're going to really take advantage of serving communities with that.
Anita, I want to close out with you. So you talked about the mission, and you talked about some of the, I think, maybe at a more macro level, what you all are doing in terms of reaching the community and bringing people into the workforce. A relationship like this, having a tool or the infrastructure, a little bit about the specific maybe programs that you offer and how you see this helping you expand that reach of those specific programs.
Yes, thank you. At the foundation of what we do, we have a broad array of employment services available. So that's everything at a basic level from I need help with a resume, help me find an immediate job today, help me with interviewing skills. And then we go into more intensive services that involved digital literacy assessments. So we can holistically assess an individual's competencies and capacities from, all Microsoft applications. We also assess and train their ability to use Mac computers as well, and we train people so that they understand both operating systems. We have a program called Bridge to Technology. It actually is the first bridge program in tech in the region. Again, all around this whole idea about connecting those individuals that have been disconnected to this digital economy. And so that program is exposing people to robotics, AI, Internet of Things, augmented reality, virtual reality, really giving them those 21st century skills to be able to either move into more higher level education or into employment. We just started the Certified Manufacturing Associate program. It's actually a really short 2-week industry recognized credential in manufacturing. And the idea there is to give people the basic skills to get their foot in the door quickly, because many people do not want or have time to go to school for 2 years, 4 years to be able to pay and sustain for their lives and their families. And so we created this short-term program that is a partnership with the Society of Manufacturing Engineers and Tooling U. And we work with some of our local trade associations and manufacturers come here to hire people on the spot. So we've been doing that since June. Those are some of our new programs we're looking to expand. We have some very exciting things on the horizon that I won't completely expose yet because they're so in their infancy, but we have a concept of how do we meet everyone's needs in more of a holistic manner, again, one-stop shop, because often people that have needs and have challenges and need help from the community or from human services or social services, they have to sort of piecemeal and figure it out and go here, there, and over here and over there to get the services they need. So much like creating those access points, we're hoping to create a broader access point and ecosystem of services to meet the community's needs here locally. Hopefully we'll be able to tell you about that soon. But another key part of who we are as an employer, which is really important for all employers to be inclusive and create these opportunities, is that we are going to turn our mission internally. As I mentioned, we employ about 600 people. Those people all make somewhere, on average between $10 and $12 an hour. And we recognize that's not a sustainable wage. So we've had to look internally at ourselves as an employer How are we creating a learning culture? How are we developing our people internally? How are we connecting them to these training opportunities and make sure that they do not stay there? So we are creating coaches for our internal team. We are building learning and development plans. We are subsidizing things like transportation. People can't pay utility bills. We're doing above and beyond to build that infrastructure of support to ensure that we actually are empowering our employees as well.
If y'all haven't been inspired tonight, I can't help you. That's, I mean, seriously. I think tonight we've heard a couple examples of when nonprofits come knocking on the corporate door, it's not for checks, it's for authentic partnerships, right? I mean, it's for like how do we make change? Because the resources that we need to make that change aren't always just in they cut the check, don't get me wrong, but it's that authentic partnership to really, take the intersection between the business, the core mission of the business, the core mission of the nonprofit and the community organization, and find that place where coming together they can do something really good. I think this is an amazing testament to that. So hats off to the team at Black Veatch on the journey that you guys had from an innovation perspective. I'm anxious to see where you guys go next. I hope we have an opportunity to partner with you guys on what's next. Anita, I could go all David Letterman and try to tease out of you what you just threw out there as the teaser point for what's the future, but we'll have you come back again when you're ready to talk about that. Anybody have any questions before we? Abraham.
I work in a mental health space, and I've been working with KU for a while to basically figure out how we can bring access to communities that are underserved for mental health services. And you guys did mention something about bringing access through infrastructure. Is there anything that Black and Veatch is doing in that aspect of healthcare right now?
Yeah, absolutely. So in the mental health care space, we actually have a mobile and modular design. We don't have a client that's currently using it, but we definitely have looked in the mental health space. We do have partnerships with Global Med, which is our telehealth provider. And so they're also the same major telehealth provider that the VA and a couple other organizations use. So that technology can be fully incorporated into our mobile and modular solution. So essentially you could come into a vehicle or into a modular space and have a full mental health meeting with a practitioner that wasn't on site. There's also, you can always do it on site, but telehealth seems to be fairly popular, and there's other organizations that are able to do that for an initial screening or initial setup, and then you can do that remotely afterwards, so you don't have to do it on site. This has been a concept that's been really popular in our discussions with higher education. If you think after a crisis at a school, there might be a lot of students that need immediate mental health support. This would be an opportunity for them to quickly get their initial support and then to follow up afterwards with at-home telehealth or an in-person practitioner. So definitely in that space, definitely looking at solutions for that and forming more partnerships to deploy that.
Yeah, we'd love to talk with you. You have a huge job ahead of you. The pandemic also created an amazing need, a big need for wellness programs. And we think our infrastructure can help in that area, as well as it created a need for talented individuals. One of the things that I wanted to mention is another reason we're partnering with Goodwill is we want to hire some of those well-trained, digitally trained people that you're educating. We have a need for talent right now at our company. We have more work than we have people. And so it's another benefit of partnering.
My question will be for the training, the programs. For instance, if you know people that are interested in the programs, how do we get to you? If we have people that are interested who don't know about the programs, how do we get to the programs and where do we find them?
Thank you so much for asking that. So they can walk in here any day into this location because the classes are here. You can go on to mokangoodwill.org. You can go on to goodwillartemisinstitute.com. And we would be happy to help you. We have a rolling enrollment, so it's very flexible and people can come in at any time.
We also have a link to their page from KeystoneDistrict.org too, so you can go there as well. All right, well, thank you. all. Again, amazing to hear the Black and Veatch journey, encouraging to see what you all are doing from an innovation, both internally and externally and in the community now. Anita, always inspiring to hear the work that Goodwill does, and it's encouraging to see this partnership and where it's going, and I'm excited to see what you guys have the opportunity to do in the future in terms of making a real impact in a much needed area. Whether it's obviously a federal priority in terms of getting that investment out there and getting that that access out there, but it really will impact lives to make those differences from a digital equity perspective. So thank you for sharing and thank you for being here, and we hope to have you all back.
Thank you. Thank you.